My name's Ross McBride. It's a very Scottish name with a very Australian accent, so you can figure out pretty quickly what my family history is. At the moment I'm teaching in Year 5 and 6 at Rockingham Lakes Primary School. Now, like many of us, we started Brightpath in 2015. What I've pretty much fed back to my administrative team is what I'll share with you today in what I've done in the classroom and what our particular PLC has done as well. So initially, some of the benefits I think to do with the Brightpath system, what we've used it with initially is with narrative and now this year with persuasive writing as well. Clearly the benefits for us have been accurate assessment to improve those student outcomes. That's what we're in the business of doing, trying to improve those outcomes for students. Really, the clearer I am in delivering my message to my students, I feel that is going to benefit them. The Brightpath rulers has allowed me as a classroom teacher to really be clear with the language I'm using and to deliver those messages to the students to hopefully improve in their narrative and now in their persuasive writing. So when any new initiative comes in, and we found this at our school and I'm sure others have as well, you need to have teacher buy-in and you need to have the support not just from your PLC but across the whole school. Now at times that can be difficult, but we teach the students, or we try to articulate to the students to be lifelong learners, that type of thing. When we have initiatives like this, I think it's a really good example for us to actually practice what we preach. And as teachers, we are lifelong learners. As people, we are lifelong learners. Collaboration and moderation in schools. Clearly it's something all high-performing schools should do, schools in general should do. I believe that the Brightpath system and the rulers is a 21st century version of that. Not only are we discussing within our PLCs and moderating in tasks, but we can meet in forums like this, and we are looking at rulers that have been established by other teachers and really acknowledging the power of the teacher in terms of determining where the student sits on the ruler. I think that's very powerful. That's one of the messages that was given to us as a school when Brightpath first came out, is really valuing that teacher judgment. So I wholeheartedly agree. Again, I've stated, the more I feel ready, your student's going to feel ready, and that's what I've actually done in my classroom at the moment. Been able to articulate what I want the students to do depending on what level they're at on the ladder. My language has become a lot clearer, my expectations therefore are clearer, and therefore progress can be made. Simple equation really. In terms of using the system, the scanning in of the work sample, in terms of uploading, in terms of then digitally using the ruler, it's extremely friendly. I know that not all of us are considered IT savvy, but even I think the analogy was used at our PD, if you can attach a document to an email and click send, then you're going to be able to do something like this. So there should be no fear attached to that 21st century version of moderation. The ruler is a clear pathway. It allowed me and continues to differentiate my teaching depending on who I'm working with. Of course, there's explicit teaching on the actual genre of narrative writing or persuasive writing. But when we start to get into the nitty-gritty of what parts student A needs to do, what parts student B need to do, that's where we can differentiate and we can sit down in our organised groups and focus on specific targets, which is a very powerful thing. As you've seen with other schools, the progress can be measured over time. Now that's something that my deputy and admin team will obviously take greater control of over the next few years, but I can see from my students, I should explain that as a Year 5-6 teacher, I had my Year 6s last year as Year 5s, so I can then see at the classroom level what has happened to them from then till now. As a result, I've been able to collate this data. Even though I wasn't teaching the Year 5s last year, they've come to me at the start of the year and I have their data straight away. I have their position on the ruler straight away. There isn't necessarily a need to go through an extensive diagnostic phase at the start of the year, which traditionally we may have done. That allows me to hit the ground running and therefore the students to hit the ground running. Again, very powerful. Once I know where the students are on the ruler, it's a case of just conferencing with them, explaining where they're at, where they need to go, and how we're going to get there. And from there, we start to do some teaching. So with the powerful thing with Brightpath, I feel, is the teaching points. So it's very hard to see, but I can see clearly from here, so that's all right. These are different points that come up on your program as to what aspects need to be addressed in order to move up to that next bracket on the ruler. We, as a PLC, then started to generate activities based around each phase in that ruler. And as we have our differentiated groups, they will work on specific activities to address that criteria. Now, when they come to eventually be assessed again, very much at the forefront of their mind is what they need to do to make that next step and how to do it. When they've written their next text, I've then asked them to reflect on their writing and to actually highlight where they feel they have addressed that criteria that we outlined for them to make that next step. So again, this was a few students that are here that fitted it, into that group, and they were the teaching points they needed to address. I'm not saying we can address all of them in one hit. We did select only a couple at a time. And then when they finished with their writing sample, they would highlight and reflect on what they felt they did to address that. Now, where do we go as a school? Like I said, 2015, so last year we started. We are gathering more data next term on narrative, so that will give me, for my particular students, 3 different samples of writing on narrative. So that's going to give me a very, very clear indication of how much they've improved. Another teacher mentioned it works very well for their reporting, term 4, and we have clear data aligned to it. I had an interesting conversation with my principal I'll quickly share with you about teachers being really good at assessing writing samples in terms of the structure, the spelling, sentence types, the character development, things like that, but not necessarily saying that sample then equals a B grade or that sample then is an A, and it becomes a little bit disjointed. A very powerful part of the Brightpath system is, after making those key judgments, the NAPLAN score equivalent and also the grade equivalent is assigned to it. I found that very useful in either supporting or forcing me to reflect on what judgments I was making previous to using the ruler. Again, very, very powerful. Our school in particular, it's just starting a visual learning journey. Now, the most powerful thing I see with this is just that clear indication of where are students at, where they need to go, and how do they get there. Are they on a path? Do they know they're on a path? Am I shining that light on the path and showing them where they have to go? That's my job. And that's what I'm reflecting on at the moment, and I feel that I'm making inroads with that by using this system. All right? Thank you very much.
So what do we do? What do we do when we're going to actually say, okay, we want to improve our writing in our school, and we're going to use a particular program? So the first thing you'd always do is dip right back into your data. And that's what we did. We went back into our NAPLAN, we looked at our classroom assessments, our on-balance judgments, all the little bits of information. We thought, okay, this is what we've got so far. And look, I'm not going to dish the dirt on NAPLAN. But if we really did need to look at it, what was the shortcoming? There was a big time lag in it, and my teachers didn't really own the data. It was something that was generated by somebody else. They forgot about it and got it on with the real stuff. And so it just sat there. So we looked at that, we valued it, we said, okay, we'll use that information, we'll see what is that giving us now, and what are we going to do from here. That's when we loved Sandy, we embraced her when she brought this beautiful Brightpath product to us, and we said, okay, we're going to use Brightpath to inform what we're going to do next, because we've got this data of where we are now, but we need to know some picture images of where we want to go to, and that's what we used with Brightpath. And we thought, okay, we've got these pictures that Brightpath are delivering to us of where students would be as they go along the track, sort of like a developmental continuum, but we needed to take our own snapshot of where our children were in writing. So we took that snapshot by giving them a writing sample, a project, and then using Brightpath to discuss where we were going to go to. Before we did that, we said, okay, we're going to use, oh my God, I keep going backwards. It's good that I'm not driving a car now because everybody would have been cracked into. It's like this guy who keeps saying, you know, I bought this BMW, but it's a real big problem for me. It's not doing what I need to do. And the person says, well, why? And he says, because, you know, every time I go into R, which means rev, it keeps going backwards. They took him into BMW and sorted him out. So you really need to know the why of what you're doing. And that's that targeted decision making that you really need to have. So what we decided was, yeah, we do want to improve our student writing. It needs to be a cross-narrative, and obviously in your early years you've got that recount aspect, and also persuasive. Who says we've been looking at NAPLAN? No kidding. But also, we wanted to establish a common language that everybody from kindy right up to year 6 spoke. Because sometimes when people speak different languages, you've got a problem, Houston. And also to establish a whole school picture versus that year level lens through teachers look at the students' work, look at their performance and look at what they're doing and then map that progress and performance. So we needed to have that very clearly imprinted on our brain. Now that we had that and we've taken our snapshot, we needed to make sure that our staff knew what they were going to do with this. And that's where critical aspect, you run that PD with our Brightpath experts or with the online facility. That training material is amazing. Anybody can do it. It takes you through so carefully. Again, going back to that point that Brightpath knows exactly what practitioners need without the fluff, without the jargon, just real, live, hard grit. So you do the training, you do the PD, you learn, you then make sure you've got that reflection time. And maybe take your staff and tell them to sit with one another and think about what it actually means when children are writing simple sentences or writing a complex sentence or using punctuation at a particular level, and get them to also teach one another. Explain to that person how you're doing this, what you've learned, getting that reiteration happening. So really clear there. And also train the staff in pairwise assessment. And I'm sure that you would have spoken about how you take different samples, you look at them, you compare them, and you think, okay, this one is better than that one, this one is over here, that one is over there. So it's important that they understand how to use it and how that correlates with the exemplars on the teacher ruler, because knowledge is power. If you're understanding the why of what you're doing and what you're doing, you're okay. And then familiarize yourself with what you're going to be looking at. What are the teaching points as you move up the continuum? What are the different level descriptors? And make sure you know where you're going. The other important thing that we did, and this was really important, and we got this beautiful template from Brightpath again, no wasting time. We mapped out for the staff at the beginning of the year, take away all the anxiety. This is what we're going to do. This is when we're taking our snapshots. Everybody knew it. Everybody was very, very well prepared. And I'll tell you something, and I always confide all the deep secrets of my staff. Nobody actually complained about it. You know, you get the pushback. Nobody pushed back. They were okay with it. They had a good lead-in time. And so we had those sample snapshot times. Important thing, before and after. You know, like when you go to the beauty salon, you want to take a photograph. So when you get home and your husband says to you, you wasted your money, you say, oh no, here's the picture of before, here's after, it looks fabulous. Do that. Beginning of the year, you take the snapshot. Middle of the year, another narrative sample. And then you're comparing apples with apples. Some people take a sample which doesn't really compare apples with apples, and I'm not going to mention names, but they might have taken a persuasive piece and then had a narrative piece and said, oops, the child's dropped down in their performance, but not really, because you're not comparing apples with apples. So it's important. And what you have to do is you complete this across the year levels, so you've got a point of reference between absolutely everybody. So, beautiful redness, isn't it? So what does this look like when our staff are actually doing this? Look at them, they're smiling. They're not even posing. But what you'll notice over there, they're sitting in the staff room, and they're using the ruler, and some of them said to me, you know what, Linda, I actually don't like using the samples that I've loaded in on Brightpath and putting that against the exemplar. Am I going too close to the microphone? It sounds like I'm doing some deep breathing over here. Heavy breathing? I'll go a bit further away. Now you can hear me without all the echo. And what they did was they actually took the samples, the exemplars, and they actually kept it there instead of looking at it on the teacher ruler, and they just used the samples that they'd loaded, and they used that to do that comparative analysis, and then they plotted it on the ruler. But you'll see lots of collaboration, lots of comparison, lots of discussion. They're not actually all from the same year level. And I just took that shot, not so that you could see the back of their head, but so that you could see how they actually plotted on the ruler. What they landed up with at the end that was actually beneficial was a personalized program for each and every student, because obviously there are ways, and I'm not going to go into detail because I'd be here all day and I would be killed by Sandy. I was going to be short, but I'm not going to be long. And a differentiated curriculum where you're actually addressing the needs of each student in a class, groups of students, and then the year levels, looking at them across that whole spectrum. And here's what's really important. My God, Skia's gonna love me. They're all able to work also in that zone of proximal development, because you've got teaching points just about the teaching points that they're operating at that you can keep pushing them into. And it's there, it's laid out for you, and it's clear. What you also get is that image in your brain of where you can see exactly how students are spread across your whole school. And don't forget, you've also got that facility to look at their performance against other schools, because you don't always want to be introspective. It's not always about living in your own little kingdom. You've got to connect, because that's how you get big picture thinking. And we need that. 21st century education skills. That's really, really critical. We need to have that. The other thing that we look at is, okay, we've got that whole school profile, but now what? What do we do with this? Well, first of all, you can see the different colors over there. Give myself a fright in the microphone over there. You can see how some children in lower years are operating in the higher years, and you can accelerate children, know who to consolidate, know where they're moving, know who's dropping down, know where the remedial person needs to kick in. It's that brilliant shared information on a developmental continuum. And you're also dipping into what happened last year, what should be happening next year, and what's going on this year. So that is really critical. But what do you do with all of that? What does it look like when that whole school planning comes to fruition? Oh my God, I love that fade out. Don't you just love that? And then what is happening over here? You can see, you need to make sure that those, we're a visible learning school. We also really are big advocates for the 7 habits of highly effective people. Visible thinking, big time. So it's that whole culture, that whole mindset of, okay, I know the success criteria. I want to find out exactly how I'm going to achieve this. And you need to make sure that students are able to self-assess, and you are there to consult with them, because they're not born with that disposition. They need education all the time. And in order to know what they're going to do with it, you need to build strategies. You use the teaching points, you sit with them, and you go through. This is how we're going to build that skill. It is so succinct. It is so easy. It's so accessible, and it is hugely effective. These students have all got these little emojis and they pop them on that continuum and they watch themselves creep up the ladder. Nobody else knows who they are. This is all about their own self-fulfillment and growth. And when you walk into the different classes, you can see that that whole school planning is rolling out. Everybody owns the data. They use it themselves. The students own the data as well as the teachers, and they know what to do with that information. So, what are the secrets of our success to make sure that that growth you can see there, and you can see the orange, growth in 1 year, the purple or blue, whatever it is, I think I might be colorblind, I've just realized it. That one is the next year. Beautiful, steady growth. Sometimes that growth is actually not on that trajectory. I've got a couple of instances where the growth has dropped. But you know something? It's so clear. It's warned me, it's alerted me, and we look at it and think, okay, now we're going to use those teaching points to look at what we need to consolidate. And we also use this data to compare to NAPLAN. So, secrets for our success. Stick to the planning. That big plan I showed you in the beginning, our initial goal, stick to that. Provide time for teachers to be PD'd on the whole program, collaborate with each other, and then have in-school time to place those students on that growth chart. Because if you don't provide the time, you don't get the collaboration, you don't respect the professionals you work with, and you don't get that brilliant, effective result. Keep reflecting and discussing, because that talk, it just works wonders. And use the data that you yourself have generated. That is so powerful. And the last thing is always reflect what you're doing in your practice. Don't actually go in, use the data and say, okay, here's the data, there it is, that's our pretty picture, and then not translate that into practice. What I want to do is I want to see exactly with every single staff member when they're having their performance management that what they've got there is reflected in their practice. Really important. I think I went over time.
Look, it's a great privilege to be able to share with you this afternoon, this morning, my experiences of using Brightpath in my Year 6 classroom. Initially, when we found out that we were going to be using Brightpath, I think the general reaction from the staff was one of great. And not great, great. Another thing for us time poor teachers to have to try and fit into what we do. Don't worry, Sandy, it will get better. And it seemed like quite an inconvenience. You had to get your students to do a piece of writing, upload it to some website, go in there, read through a bunch of exemplars, mark the students' work. And I think we kind of all thought, well, that's what I do that anyway. I mark my students' work, I give them a grade, we move on. Why am I adding so much time and process to what I do? And I guess the question for me to talk to you about today is, what is the game changer? Why bother with this? And I think at the end of the day, something that helps grow students and teachers professionally is really valuable and worth doing. Brightpath offers a teaching tool that can differentiate, like these guys have already spoken about, differentiate the learning. And also, it's really great at being able to help students and staff make that learning visible to everyone. So teaching and assessing writing is probably one of those tasks that most teachers dread. It takes a really long time, it's seemingly subjective, and often I've found that teachers, myself included, lack the time to actually go through the whole reflective writing cycle of going back to the students' work and helping them to be able to see where they are and where they could go to, and so it's not as rich as it could be. And I think we probably all have moments when we look at a piece of work from a student and we just think, man, where do I possibly go from here? And, you know, I put this together to kind of show, sometimes when I look at a student's work, I think, where do I even start? What am I going to do here to try and help guide them and actually do some great teaching? And to be honest, I think this can feel the students can also feel a bit like this, sort of almost overwhelmed as they're trying to hold all these bits of processes and ideas in their head simultaneously. One of my favourite things about Brightpath are the teaching points. So you can use these to guide the differentiated teaching and learning in your classroom, and that really creates exceptionally powerful pedagogy. After using the teacher's ruler to score the students' work, you are given a set of teaching points. And really, let's hope this works. Oh, check that fade out, Linda. Look at that, wow. Really, what that does...
You've been practicing your
Oh, yeah, I've been working on it. What that really does is kind of narrows the focus down for both the staff and for the students to say, hey, these are the things that we're going to focus on to help bring you up to the next level of your writing, to grow, to progress, to improve. And that's a great thing. It gives the students a real clear path for their own personal growth. Using this process, effectively what we've been able to do is keep focus in on the individual learner. So instead of just sort of teaching the whole class the big picture kind of structure and the ideas of a genre of writing from a really high level, you're able to drill down and provide the students with tailored guidelines for how they can actually grow and improve. Now, you might be sitting there going, well, yeah, that's great. That's just what all, providing differentiated learning is what all the teachers should be doing all the time to all the students. And you're right, but it's flippin' difficult. So to have a tool that helps you do that is fantastic. And I've found in my experience, Brightpath is a really user-friendly and exceptional tool for doing that. Basically, it just makes what quality teachers have been doing for years, but just you can do it and you can go deeper still. As far as the practical side of using Brightpath, the teaching points in my classroom every day, I'm married to a kindergarten teacher, so as far as creativity goes, kindergarten teacher, year 6 teacher. So what I did certainly wasn't fancy, but I think it was quite effective. After we'd scored the writing pieces, I printed out the teaching points, and this is not very fancy at all, but I put the student's name on top of each of the teaching points for them. I thought it was pretty great, but I saw their name printed. And I got the students together in who had similar needs to work on for that genre, and these became my guided writing groups. Again, this is nothing like it's just what people do, but I'm just sharing my experience with you. They used those teaching points that they got to create some goals for themselves for the however long weeks, the term of their writing. And then they were able to, each time we met as a guided writing group, we'd look at their goal that they'd formed based on these teaching points, and we would work through, getting them to progress. Again, that'll look different for every single class, but for me, with my students in year 6, we looked at a lot of exemplar texts, annotated those, we looked at a lot of paragraphing, phrasing, the structure of sentences, we examined vocabulary, we got a lot of self-reflection on their writing and a lot of peer response and editing, and that was just a few things to name a few. But the lovely thing was you could see the motivation and engagement increase as you did this, because they were actually owning the process a lot more. Our school has many catchphrase taglines, and I'm actually tempted to ask the people who have come from my school today if they could know any of them. We have a bit of a, he's not here so I can say it, we have a bit of a laugh every sort of whole school meeting. We play bingo and see how many times the phrases come up in the speech. But one of them is growing people. Now, again, I'm sure all schools are actually out there to grow people. I don't think anyone has a motto like, let's inspire stagnation in our school. But it's really something that's very important to me as an educator to get students to try and have a mindset of growth. And that's something that's really incredibly important for me. We know how important that is. There's heaps of research that shows why it's a good thing, so I'm not going to go into that. But it's actually, I've found, quite hard to instill this idea in students, particularly as they get older, because I find my year 6 students often are worried about the grade that they're going to get, A, B, C, D, E or whatever we give out now, because they are often focused on that or on their report, and they're thinking about that sort of really doesn't really mean much to them, but they're really wound up with it. So to help them have a growth mindset is really important, and I think Brightpath actually helps our students with that as well. I have the genre ruler up in my classroom, and with the different exemplars, and then the students can look at where they are based on the work we've done and where they want to go to, build that into their actual goal for writing. And I'm year 6, so I guess you can be a bit more, but I'm completely honest and open with my students about their learning. And I challenge them to say, look, how much can you actually grow during this term? Kids aren't stupid. They know when they're good at something and they know when they're not. And I think actually, in my experience, students really appreciate honesty and transparency when you're talking about their learning. Obviously, you do that with grace and gentleness. You don't tell them that they're useless, but it's important that they actually can see that, and that's something that really makes the learning quite visible for them. And I guess that brings me to the last thing, and a really important part of this whole process, and that we've been able to use Brightpath for, is celebrating. At the end of the term, when we scored the students' work, it was really great to see them reflecting on how they've gone. Some of them are growing a bit, some of them are growing a lot, all of them are growing, praise the good Lord. And they were talking about their growth and sharing it with each other and getting excited about how they've done, well, as excited as year 6 students can get about writing. But I didn't make any mention of marks or grades in our reflection as a class, but again, I purely focused on the growth that the students had made. And I think this is a really incredibly powerful notion to build motivation and engagement into students when it comes to writing, because they can see that they've actually grown and improved, and that's incredibly powerful. Now, I didn't have any students come up to me afterwards and say, begging to do more writing, but certainly when we came to our next writing task, there was a lot more motivation and engagement and buy-in. So, has it been worth it? Yes, unreservedly yes. Really, Brightpath is differentiated learning, making the learning visible and celebrating student success. And that's just what good teachers do. But this is just a tool that makes it easier.
Hello everyone, my name is Kerry Hill and I lead literacy at Charterhouse Primary School. I discovered Brightpath at the end of 2014 and I loved it straight away, and what I loved most is that it grows with us. I have emailed the team at Brightpath many times and they're always willing to look at different things and grow this project. So when Sandy asked me to speak today, I was very excited because I love Brightpath and because I love being on a stage. However, I have realised that my love of being on a stage is related to copious amounts of alcohol and usually at a party. This feels very different, so we'll see how we go. I'd like to also acknowledge and thank the staff at Charterhouse because they ran with this. And I know teachers are change wary and we bring things in and we may have the passion, but the staff at Charterhouse, they did run with it, and more importantly, they weren't afraid to say what they didn't know, and that makes an amazing educator. So well done to those staff. I better move into my slide. Let's see. We all go backwards. Okay. I think the first statement's really important. Parents are our partners in education and we need to value them. Data tells us that engaged parents relate to high performing students, and I've done some research on this recently, and there's firm data to show it's quite a substantial difference. The two key areas are around reading and communicating with their children. So we need to keep parents engaged in this process. The lifestyle of families has evolved and we need to evolve with it. As educators, we do often complain and say that we can't get parents in as we used to and that they're simply not interested. But I really challenge that. I think their lifestyles evolved and we have to evolve with it. And one great thing that I've found with Brightpath is whilst they haven't been able to get into the classes as much as they used to, I can communicate through different report styles that we can send home, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. Yes, I'm aware some won't read them, may not even notice them, but the ones who do it will make a difference. Developing a shared understanding of good writing is of great benefit to the students if they're supported at home and school, and this will equal greater student outcomes. So, we started with narrative and recount, and this is an example of our first report that we sent home. Each year level adapted their own report through descriptors and teaching points, though descriptors and teaching points had been saved as a document ready for them. The letter format was also developed as a whole school. From our parent surveys, we knew that a key area we needed to work on is that parents wanted improved and regular literacy feedback. So Brightpath gave us a place to start. It was very important that teachers were part of this process because we needed to ensure buy-in and that the final result reflects what they wanted to communicate. So this took quite a lot of work. As a literacy coordinator, I had time to set things up to simplify that process. And then we do at our school, like most schools, have set year level dot sessions, and so we're able to collaborate and keep building on this report. We decided doing it in term 1 and 3 was the best option because it gave us an opportunity to initiate parent discussion, hence the bottom section that they sign and send back. We included goal setting because it's an area that our data told us we really needed to work on, and it was our focus as directed by the Department of Education. We could also use this to engage parents on what their children's goals were. I'll give you time to have a look at this letter. Can everyone see that from where you are? No. Would you like me to read it? Yes. Thanks. Yeah, it's so much easier with wine. At Charthouse, we have introduced a new assessment and moderating system to support us in evaluating students' writing. It is called Brightpath. We compare students' writing samples to a ruler, which has levelled samples within it. Using the descriptor and visual samples, we then decide where your child's work fits on the ruler. Responses from families last year through the survey made available at the end of last year highlighted to us that you would like more feedback regarding your students' work. This will help us address this area of communication between families and school. If you would like to learn more about this, you can go to the website. Alternately, you can speak to your classroom teacher, and I am also available to answer any quick questions relating to this software. Attached is a sample of your child's work. This sample was obtained midway through term 1. We will be collecting another sample from your child towards the middle of term 2. Students can then reflect on their goals and set new ones. Once again, this information will be sent home. This lesson was scaffolded to ensure we were seeing what they were really capable of. This means students had a chance to develop their understanding of the task and ideas before the writing session. There was a time limit to complete the task. There is also a sheet containing a descriptor and areas your child needs to work on in order to improve their writing. The students have then been encouraged to set personal goals that will help them to move to the next level when writing a recount or a narrative. Please return the bottom section of the attached sheet when you have read your child's work. So, what happened next? Well, they were really interested, and I was genuinely surprised by the amount of interest at the beginning. There was a positive outcome. They were asking things like, what can I do? Which for a teacher is one of our favourite questions. As a literacy specialist, I decided to host some sessions on understanding Brightpath because I was finding a lot of parents were coming in dribs and drabs, and I kept having to go through the same stuff. So I spoke to Sandy and decided to set up a session. Sorry. That was the result of the direct request from families once they got that. They wanted to know what it actually meant, that report, and what exactly they needed to do at home to build on this. Numbers were not enormous by a long shot, but if it makes a difference to a handful, then it's been worth it. So after the report goes out, if you are going to be using the report, I urge you to take the plunge and invite them in. I actually made up a bit of a slideshow for the parents using the slides that are available from Brightpath, and then they used samples that we had from their students and they had to go themselves. And I tell you what, they really now realise how hard hard job we have working with so many varied levels in our class. So it was a great thing to actually do. It also gave me a chance to work with early childhood parents and talk about, you know, there's so much more, it's not just a picture. We were talking about the value of detail in their recount pictures and where to go from there. A lot of them had a lot of interest in numbers. Why didn't they get the actual number on that first report? And we did actually address that later on. The other great thing was there were no surprises at report time, not around writing, because we'd had those conversations in term 1, and that made a great difference. Reading to writing, I worked with parents to help them with ideas for home, and I had the advantage of running a reading room in the morning, so parents were already coming in with their students and working at that level, so I was able to relate building writing growth to reading at home and explaining that in order to write a good piece of writing, you needed to comprehend one, which really goes back to what we were talking about this morning. But this did get me thinking about the value of parent information, and there'll be more about that later. For the staff, we realised that we really sucked at goal setting. We needed so much work in this area, and our kids, we didn't really know how to get them to do it, so consequently, the kids found it quite challenging. We tried lots of different ways. Teachers worked, we have guided writing, so they would take a small group and work with those kids to establish goals. Others did it in a conference style. But on the way up here today, I was with my colleague, and she said that goal setting this time went really well. And she actually got the kids to read out their work to another child, and they were hearing things in their work, and they found it incredibly easy to then set the goals. So it's good to hear that we're growing that at Charthouse. We have to keep the goals visual, and this is still a work in progress. Also, we had certainly more, the engaged parents were the early childhood parents, but I don't see that as such a bad thing, because growing their skills is what we want to be doing. We have the greatest impact there anyway. So our report has evolved with time to reflect ongoing parent and staff feedback, because it really has to work for your stakeholders. We've got lots of new additions. We've got the C grade range on it. Student score were included. Highlighted focus areas. We decided to actually give the families and the student a little bit more focus around the ones that really mattered to them. And the first time we chose to reflect on the goals so the parents could see that process. So, where to next? I need to make sure it's still driven, so I have to, I've dropped the ball a bit this year because I've gone in and worked as a deputy, but we need to keep it visual, displayed rulers, need to have the information in the newsletters, and we need to keep moving. And for our school, I think it's time for us to move into reports, because our results are telling us that's an area we need to work on. And I know the kids, through conversations, aren't really engaging in non-fiction books at home, so I think it'll be a great way again to have these really productive conversations with families, and hopefully they'll up the ante at home in terms of non-fiction as well. I'd also like to move to oral recounts, and certainly after this morning I can see extreme value in this. Later on I'm going to be talking a little bit about a new parent guide that we're looking at, so I'll stop at this point. But my notes today and all the reports, I will ask Sandy to upload onto Facebook, so if any of you want to use that kind of a report format, it will be there and available. Thank you very much.
My name is Melanie Osborne. I'm an English leader at Comet Bay Primary School, and Comet Bay Primary School is part of the Comet Bay Professional Learning Community. So what I'm going to talk about today is how we use Brightpath, or our vision for using Brightpath across a network of schools. So we were lucky enough to be involved, not so much in Brightpath, but we've been involved working with Sandy since 2012 in the development of the early writing scale. So we've had a lot of time to practice and play and with the early writing scale, and then into Brightpath. So we've done a lot of what these guys are doing or have done, and then it's like, wow, wouldn't this be great if we could use this across our schools? So to start with, I'll just quickly explain what our Comet Bay Professional Learning Community looks like. So we have 4 primary schools and a high school. So we're looking at 4 primary schools that are level 6 or 5, so we're looking at about 2,800 students, and a level 6 high school with about 1,500 to 1,800 students. all of those schools are obviously large schools with ICSIAs that range from 995 to 1,030, and they're all within a 5k, is that about right? 5k radius. So we're all very close. So there's a lot of students in a small area. So we have quite a complex Comet Bay professional learning community, and we've got lots of structures set up so that we can collaborate, moderate, and work together. So we have 3 focuses. We focus on learning, focus on collaboration, and we focus on results. So each group works on those things. So we have learning teams. So we have a KP1 learning team, 2-3 learning team, a Year 4-5 learning team, and a Year 6-7 learning team. And then we have some learning area teams. So science, art, the arts, health and phys ed, T&E, G&T, PLET, which is positive learning, blank, lucky it came. And so we have a leadership. So there's a chair from each group that meet. Each group meets half a day per term and one afternoon per term. The leadership group meet for half a day each term, and then the executive team meet as well a couple of times a term. So I'm just going to talk, as I'm part of the KP1 group, I'll talk about how we started with our vision for how we could use Brightpath across a network of schools. So because Comet Bay Primary School had done quite a bit of work with it, this is just how this is our journey, I suppose. We had to go lightly. It's very hard to start getting schools to collaborate and not compete. So we worked closely, we built networks, we won people over, we created relationships within the 4 primary schools generally. So we were lucky enough to start in 2012. I was talking to Marilyn about being in the Whopper boardroom on that very first day with Sandy and Jean Rice, and Sandy put about 2 million numbers up on the board and told us what we were going to do, and we said, we'll just, interpret the scribble, you do the numbers. But it developed, and Marilyn just said, I'm not sure where this is going to lead to, but I'm glad we stuck with it. It's been great. In 2014, we started having a go with the Brightpath. We started with hard scales, and teachers in our school had to play around with it. We didn't have a lot of direction. We were just trying to build confidence. And in the CBPLC, I started talking to the KP1 group about the early writing scale. We did some professional learning, and they were all like, wow, which is what we did first. And a lot of our teachers at Comet Bay Primary School call it, Brightpath is the running record of writing. So it's very diagnostic. It tells you exactly where the kids need to go next. So we worked our way through. Comet Bay Primary School was sort of always one step ahead of what we fed through to the professional learning community. But we managed then to get all the KP1 teachers across the CBPLC to have a go at recount writing. They all did it. It took us a while to get them to commit to Brightpath. I think they've all had Sandy out to do some professional learning. They're all at different levels of learning, just like our kids are. Sandy did a lot of work with the principals and the executive group, so we were sort of infiltrating at every angle. So this year, on the CBPLC, all the schools have committed to Brightpath, whether it's with the advanced reporting or not. And this year, the KP1 teachers all did a recount in week 5 of term 3. We collected the data, we shared it, we've had discipline dialogue, and we've done a bit of moderation. Sandy we have one CBPLC professional learning day a year where the 4-5 schools get together, run concurrent sessions on different topics over all 5 schools. So Sandy presented at that, and I think our vision is to share some data from our Year 6s transitioning into the college. The college have got a real interest now in Brightpath with the Year 7s and even the Year 8s and 9s, but at this point in time it's with the Year 7s, and we're looking at doing a sample next term so that we can pass those teaching points and things on straight to the Year 7 teachers next year, so they can hit the ground running. They know where the kids are at, they know what to start teaching them straight away. Our look into next year is to have more level teams across the CBPLC to do an agreed scale, so looking at the Year 2-3 team, the 4-5 team, the 6-7 team. I think at this point in time our Year 6-7 team will be the next team in the CBPLC that jumps on board, but who knows. And to use, when I say assessment tool, Brightpath is the assessment tool, to use an agreed scale that both the primary and the high school can find useful. Is it the narrative? Is it the information report? Is it persuasive? That's something that we'll decide. The high school teachers that I've been talking to thinking that the information report is going to help with their essay writing as they continue on. So that's a conversation and dialogue that we're still having. And the same thing for our Year 6 transition. So I'm just going to share with you some data that we've had. Whenever I have this idea about what I can do with some of our data, I always send an email off to Sandy to say, do you think this could happen? And I sort of just leave it with her, and then my email goes ping, and there it is, it's back already. She's already done it. So this is some information. So I've just pulled out the pre-primary cohort, really. So this is the 4 schools. So remembering that one of the schools has been doing it for a long time, another one has been doing it for 1 or 2 years, but there's 2 schools there that have just had their first go at it. So the KP1 group met a couple of weeks ago, and we shared this data and said, well, what does that look like? What does that tell us across the schools? You can see that some schools are bigger than other ones, a new school that's growing rapidly. So we had some discipline dialogue around that. So this graph says the same. This is the one that we were very excited about, because this is where we're going to get into some moderation. So our vision, wouldn't it be great to be able to press, on the scale you can press and the writing sample comes up? Wouldn't it be great across the 4 schools to press, the writing sample comes up, and just like we do in our own primary school, but be able to do it across the network. So we do that moderation in our own primary school, and like someone said, when we've got Year 2s and Year 6s sitting on the same Brightpath number, but for here, that's all our pre-primaries across the CBPLC. Wouldn't it be great to pull up those writing samples and say, oh, why did you do that? Or how did you get to that? And thinking, we look at that and we say some schools are better extending their kids than other schools. That was some of the dialogue. Well, how do you do that? We've got some schools who have got pre-primary sitting so much higher on the scale. Is that just luck, or is it you're extending your kids better than we're doing it? Or some schools have got a big cohort at the bottom. What is it that we're doing that we can learn from other schools? So, that's it. That's working across the network.
So it's my job now to tie everything together, and if you don't know me, I'm Katrina from WAPA, the WA Primary Principals Association. I've been the principal consultant there for 5 years. I've been very lucky enough to be with Sandy and Jean from the beginning, and so I feel just as excited as the Brightpath team here today to see everyone in the room and loving the work that we have done for the profession over the last 5 years. So thank you to all the schools, and thank you to my networks and the people I went and meet initially to say, would you give it a go? Can we get some samples from you? I'd really like to thank that. And I'd like to thank Stephen Breen, our president, as well, to seeing the vision of this and collaborating with the Brightpath team at that time. So it's my job to pull it all together now to tell you what I've learnt. I go into schools and I get Brightpath started. Okay, so I'm up to about 60 schools as of this week, where I go in and I start the Brightpath process for them. So mainly in government schools. So these are the things I've learned, and what you'll find is it's just linking all the key messages that my wonderful presenters have been saying today. So the first thing I find when I go into a school is that there might have been a bit of a mess of assessment going on in the school. So I often request that they start thinking and reflecting on these questions, which are, what are we collecting currently in writing? Can you tell me? And what are you doing with that data? And if you only have that plan, well, what do you do to help fill the gaps for those students? So that's the first thing I'll talk about. What are you currently collecting? The second thing is what you're collecting actually informing your teaching and learning? Yes, no, should it stay, start? What else is out there? The next thing would be, how do we then measure the growth and the success of what we're doing? A lot of schools have wonderful programs starting in their schools, but how do we know? What's the impact, as Hattie would say? So how do we know? Let's get those things straight. And probably, just as my practitioners have said, should we audit our practice and reflect on it? And it comes down to our mindsets. And our mindset has to be, are we about assessment set driven for assessment purposes, or are we having a mindset of growth, as all of these people have said today? Is it about the growth that each individual student is going to be on a journey when they're learning? We have a publication that Sandy and I did prior to a lot of the work we did with Brightpath. We kind of did it back to front, but this is a great publication. It is available, but it has auditing tools for schools to get their assessment in order. So one of the auditing tools that Sandy developed is this one. Listing all the assessments you've got, thinking about the cost it takes, the time it takes to teachers, getting a bit of a survey whether the teachers actually value it. Because if they don't value it, why are we doing it? And is it making or having an impact on students? So we use the audit tool from the publication to help get things in alignment. The other thing we do is, when we came together on this particular project, we used the idea of a mindset or a mind frame that Hattie talked about. And what we had is this particular page in the publication that helps you get on the same page with your staff. So on the left-hand side, it talks about all the different types of assessment, what are their definitions, and when I talk about formative assessment, do you have the same definition as me? Or if I'm thinking about a growth mindset and what that looks like, are we on the same page? So the other part in the middle is actually my favourite part, because I will say to schools, there are 4 inputs into assessment. There is, does it input to the classroom teacher? Does it input across classrooms? Does the assessment help us with whole school data? And can it feed the state data? So what I would say is, if it hits 3 out of those 4 boxes, it's worth doing. If it's not, let's think about the purpose of why we're doing what we're doing. So is it more of a diagnostic screening tool, or is it more of a, why would we do that? So I often go through, before I even come in with Brightpath, I ask teachers to reflect on all the assessment and getting them on the same mindset first. That's the publication, and you can purchase it out the front. But my favourite page that is the advice page on the on the Brightpath website. If you go into teacher resources, there is a guide for leading your school with Brightpath. On the inside cover is the tips page, and I highly recommend anyone in this room that is starting to implement Brightpath, that is your go-to page. It tells you everything you need to know, all the mistakes that Sandy and I have made in scanning or getting started. We've tried to articulate it in that tips page so that you know where to start, okay? If it's not there, ring us and we'll give you the advice of the schools we've worked in. So the things I've learnt, and it summarises what we have from all the people up here, I'm sure they'll all agree with this. It's all in the planning. You have to be planned. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. And there are wonderful planning tools that Sandy has developed with her team so that you don't have to think about it. And they are in the teacher resources section on the Brightpath website. Be firm. The schools that I work with that have been successful are the schools that have firm timelines and are firm with their leadership of the project. It's not, oh, have a play with it this term, and then we might talk about it, and then it's from the start. There's a very strategic implementation, and the planning tools that Sandy has developed are really important. Spoon feed if necessary to win in the end. And some of the schools I go into, I have to spoon feed. And it's not to be, you're busy people in classrooms. So if I want you to know about Brightpath, I might pop the research into your pigeonhole beforehand. If I want you to get started on the recount, I might put in the guide to assessing writing and guide to assessing recounts. I might actually photocopy off the guide for you, put it in your pigeonholes, so you've got some prep time to think about it. So when I say spoon feeding, I mean using the resources that Brightpath have put together to actually make sure you've got a lovely smooth ride into implementation and the change management when you put something into a school. And as I said, do it right the first time. What I mean by that is that you actually have samples and you do it physically and you spend that time, okay? And timelines have to be really clear. So, this is what I found was the most frustrating part for me. Implementing Brightpath, it is fantastic. You get excited, you think, wow, I can't wait. And I want to do it now. But what I've learnt is that you actually have to be very patient and you actually have to have your timeline set. And as you can see through Comet Bay's journey, even moving through their collaborative community learning, it takes time, and I want you to be mindful of that. We want you to hurry up, but really we need to make sure that we've got that time. Being firm, I think, is really important. Really, really important. So making it very clear, this is the strategic planning, this is the way we're going to go about it. It's really important. Being organised, and that's about doing it right the first time. Making sure that you have everything in place, that you have the support you need. You can call Sandy, you can call Whopper. We can be there to get that information started in your schools. And the timeline. Making sure that when you're organised, the timelines are in place. I'd like to let you know that Whopper is your provider for government schools. So we provide a 1 hour free session. I come out to your school site and introduce Brightpath to your staff. Our government Whopper members get that for free. We also have consultancy. You don't have to do this on your own. So myself or other members can come out and help you implement across your school for a small fee. We come out and we help you step by step through the process as well. So I hope that gives you a big summary of all the wonderful people that have presented today. Thank you to the schools that have been involved so far, and thanks for having me.